In this ceaselessly noisy world, where the sounds of notifications, calls, and endless conversations besiege us, have you ever wondered if true power doesn't come from words, but lies hidden deep within silence? Hello, I am here today to tell you a story not of earth-shattering battles or mighty kingdoms, but of a conquest far greater, the conquest of one's own mind. Words, you see, are a double-edged sword. They can build bridges of love, but they can also burn them down in an instant. They can be a source of strength that uplifts a soul, but also an invisible blade that inflicts the deepest emotional scars. We live in an age where everyone strives to speak, to express, to fill every void with sound. But it is in silence that we truly find answers, find peace, and surprisingly, even find success. The story of King Alaric and his journey to discover the power of silence will bear witness to this. Once upon a time, there was a king named Alaric. He was an enlightened monarch, ruling over a prosperous and powerful kingdom. Under his leadership, the people lived in abundance, and the borders expanded. To all who observed him, he seemed to possess everything: power, fame, and respect. But deep within, the king's mind was a ceaseless battlefield. It was like a lake constantly rippled by thousands of thoughts, worries, plans, and even invisible fears. He spoke a great deal. In court sessions, his words resonated, sharp and full of authority. When with his advisors, he debated incessantly. Even at banquets, his voice would drown out the sounds of lutes and flutes. He believed that speaking much was a sign of wisdom and power. But thoughtless words sometimes caused unnecessary troubles, hurting loyal subjects and creating hidden conflicts within the court. Each night, upon returning to his magnificent palace, the king felt an emptiness and exhaustion that left him utterly drained. His mind continued to clamor, denying him a single moment of peace. He sought out the most learned scholars, the most brilliant advisors, but all they offered were external solutions. No one could reach and soothe the storm raging within his soul. In his deepest despair, the king heard tales of a reclusive Zen master dwelling atop Dragon's Rest Mountain, named Master Quietude. His name was truly special, meaning no words. It was rumored that his wisdom was as deep as the ocean, and he imparted truth only through silence. Carrying a final glimmer of hope, King Alaric decided to embark on a solitary journey to find the master's hermitage. After many days of traversing mountains and streams, he finally reached the small, simple retreat nestled amidst the mists. Master Quietude, with a high forehead and benevolent eyes, sat there as still as a statue. The king, unable to maintain his usual regal demeanor, poured out his heart. He spoke of his restlessness, the burden of his kingdom, his sleepless nights, and his feeling of helplessness before his own mind. He spoke for hours, while the master listened in silence, his eyes devoid of judgment, filled only with profound compassion. When the king was exhausted and had nothing left to say, he looked up at the master, awaiting advice, a miraculous remedy. Master Quietude smiled, a warm smile like the morning sun, and gently said, "Your Majesty, please stay here for 15 days. During those 15 days, I ask that you observe a single precept: complete silence. Speak not a single word." The king was utterly astonished. Silence. How could not speaking solve his tangled problems? But looking into the master's serene eyes, he sensed an extraordinary depth of wisdom and decided to comply. The first few days were a true torment. The urge to speak surged like a gnawing hunger. His mind screamed in protest. He wanted to command his guards, to debate a thought that had just arisen, to complain about his discomfort. His internal monologue was even louder than his court sessions. He felt as though he was going mad in the very silence he had created. But he persevered. Gradually, by the 5th or 6th day, a miraculous change began to unfold. Without an external outlet through words, the incessant thoughts began to lose their power. They still came, but then quietly drifted away like clouds in the sky. For the first time in his life, the king truly listened. He heard the wind whispering through the pine trees, the birds chirping melodiously in the morning, the stream gurgling over the rocks. He began to observe, seeing the intricate beauty on a single leaf, the sunlight dancing on the ground, the peace in every action of the monks in the temple. By the 10th day, a profound stillness enveloped him. It was not an empty silence, but a stillness brimming with life and awareness. In that silent space, he began to see through to the root of every problem. He realized that his excessive talking and negative thoughts had burned away his energy, disturbed his mind, and led to erroneous decisions. His words often preceded his thoughts, creating unintended consequences. His restlessness did not stem from the kingdom's issues, but from his own unresting mind. On the 15th day, when the vow of silence concluded, the king felt no urge to speak. He sat in meditation, feeling a peace, a clarity, and an inner strength he had never known. He went to Master Quietude, spoke not a word, but simply bowed his head in deep reverence. The master nodded and smiled, for he had seen the transformation in the king's eyes. It was then that the king finally spoke, but his words were now different. They were slow, profound, and contained a deep understanding. I understand. All this time, I have been diligently searching for answers externally, while the source of all my unease lay right within my own noisy mind. Silence is not emptiness, but the space for wisdom to blossom. The Buddha once taught that silence is the first step on the path to self-discovery and self-awareness. When we are silent, we stop wasting energy on futile arguments, complaints, and gossip. Silence helps reduce problems, for most troubles in life originate from words. When the mind becomes less noisy, our inner energy is conserved and begins to flow harmoniously, bringing a sense of inherent peace and happiness. When you maintain inner silence, even when you speak, your words will carry an entirely different quality. They become beautiful, weighty, and profoundly impactful to the listener. That is true power, not the power of volume, but the power of stillness. Silence also remarkably improves concentration. A tranquil mind is like a calm lake, capable of reflecting everything clearly. With heightened concentration, every task you undertake becomes more effective, leading you to success and earning genuine respect from others. You see, true wisdom lies not in how much one speaks, but in knowing when to speak, where to speak, and what to say. Great figures in history were often those who spoke very little. Their words were carefully considered, each carrying its own weight. They listened more and only spoke when their words could bring value. We may not be kings, but each of us rules the kingdom of our own mind. That kingdom can be a chaotic, noisy place, or it can be a peaceful, prosperous sanctuary. It is all your choice. Therefore, I invite you, starting today, to try and set aside some time for yourself. It doesn't have to be 15 days. Begin with 20 minutes each day. Find a quiet corner, turn off your phone, put aside all tasks, and simply sit there in silence. Allow yourself to listen, not to external sounds, but to the silence within. Initially, it might be very difficult. Your mind will resist, but be patient. Let silence heal, nourish, and guide you. Because in the deepest stillness, you will not only find peace, but also discover the strongest, wisest, and most authentic version of yourself.